Hey guys, and welcome back to Making Spirituality Real. We are finally using the camera. I only have one other video with this camera. I did a Reiki session and I only published it not so long ago, even though I've had it for months. Yeah, I kind of have taken a long time to be able to have enough of a quiet space to record something, which, I'm still dealing with stage fright to the max, but I'm here. And today I want to talk about something that has been very important to me on my spiritual path. It's something I already touched on my TikTok account, and you can find the links to all of that in my link tree down below. But I wanted it to be a longer YouTube video because TikTok, gives you a limited option. And hey, I have a camera, why not use it, right? I have a YouTube channel, why not use that too, right? I already kind of touched on the subject a long time ago. It was years ago when I still lived in Europe. You can find it if you scroll back through my channel. But I think I need to make a more detailed, updated version because I've grown a lot since then in the department, so my advice is also gonna be better. By the way, if you hear barking, I have two dogs that are very pissed right now that they can't access me, so just ignore that. I try to tire them off by giving them a long walk, but you never know. So why has the journey towards conscious consumption been so important for me on my spiritual path? And I'm pretty sure if it happened to me, it can't be a singular event, so I'm confident it's gonna feel relatable to at least some of you. That is because our daily life physically resounds energetically with the items that we possess. And the source of these items, how they were made, how they were created, and the vibration they have is something that in some level creates the physical experience of our life. And I know that there is a school of spirituality that says, oh, you should detach from all physical aspects of life and you're shallow if you're looking at this. But actually it's quite the opposite, because if you're looking at it this way, you're in denial and you're not really acknowledging the fact that there are things around you that are influencing you all the time. So in fact, by pretending that your physical choices don't influence your spiritual path and your emotional reality, you're deluding yourself. And you're not really looking at the fact that you may be making poor choices in some areas. Naturally, we're human and we're here to enjoy this life, so you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be so hard on yourself, you don't have to judge yourself and say, oh, if I had a weaker day when it comes to my diet or my purchases, then it's the end of the world. But especially with physical items that touch your skin, which is what we're dealing with today, and then items that you ingest, which is a whole topic for a whole other video, which is not gonna be right now. It's something that long term is going to completely determine the quality of your life. And today I want to start my journey of talking about conscious consumption through talking about my experience in upgrade with quality of clothing, which has not been an easy one. And so I think it's going to be relatable to a lot of you because, most people, they don't really have that much financially to begin with to be able to spare on everything they would like, right? But I'm here to prove to you that consciousness and mature choices are not about having a lot, but they're about having less but quality. It's about being intelligent. Because if somebody from my background can do it, then pretty much anyone can. So my journey started with myself having almost nothing since childhood, coming from a very underprivileged background and being raised by a struggling single mother. And as a result, if I got anything to put my back at all, I would hear that I'm lucky to own anything at all. And there's not much really a 3 or 5-year-old can do at the time, right? But as I grew up, first, before I even had any spiritual awareness, at least on a conscious level, my first desire was to be able to choose for myself and to be able to go into any store and get anything at all. Like at this point, going into H&M, which right now I stay away from, really far away from, would be considered the height of luxury for the kind of life that I was forced to live. And so what I did is that I started to work very early on in life and I started to do my best to improve my circumstances in order to be able to get what I wanted and needed for myself. But it took a long time before I was able to really, truly and fully understand what I was looking for, because at the time I was honestly just so concerned with being able to get anything at all whatsoever that I was just not discerning. I would just look at the first thing that I thought fit my body. It didn't help matters also that I'm quite tall and it was hard for me to find anything for myself. So I basically would just buy anything that was within my budget, that was not as ugly as what I was given by my family, and that was just within my realm of possibilities. And at the time that sadly, wasn't much, because I didn't have much. I was still completing my education, and I also didn't really have much perspective on certain other sources that you can use to really expand the quality of your physical life when it comes to what you put on yourself. And then I got older, much older. I look younger than I am, haha. And there came a time in my life when I was actually able to afford more things. Maybe not that much more, but generally it wasn't that much of a treat anymore to be able to go into any store at all. And it was possible for me to basically go there and get something. Maybe not all the time, but at least, you know, on a regular basis if I needed to. And at some point, you know, there's always this element that when you grow up having little to nothing, there's this desire to binge because you're like, oh my god, I can finally have that in my life. And then at the same time, I went through a spiritual awakening that came more from an emotional dimension of my life. It came with a lot of loss, you know, loss of family members, and that's an illness in my family that has really crippled me emotionally. And as that happened, at the same time, my physical awareness has grown. And I started to actually have physically skin reactions to the pore fabrics if I have had any. And then I realized, damn, like, I kind of have been feeling like this my whole life, I just didn't know that I was. And this was the first time in my life when I started to be interested in what I was actually putting on myself, because before that I didn't even question it. I was just so happy that I could have anything at all. And at the same time, I kind of became sick of this side of myself that I just wanted to go and buy from the more on the more easily available sources of consumerism. And then at the same time, COVID happened. Like, all of those things kind of converged and happened simultaneously. And at the same time, also my Saturn return happened. So another thing, which you will know that, you know, this is a channel that talks also about astrology, so you will know how that works together. So I think like a lot of things had to align to really push me in that direction, which is, you know, so that I can tell you about it right now, and hopefully someone's gonna learn from my journey too. And at the same time, you know, with COVID, all the stores became closed, and also there were those other emotional factors that have come into my life. And I started to really question for the first time, what do I really want? Like, if I don't have to worry, let's say that I could buy anything hypothetically, what would I choose for myself? What do I think would be good? What do I think is the right choice? And why is COVID important here? Because due to COVID, at the time, more and more alternatives to online shopping have appeared. And by online shopping, I mean online thrifting. Because the platforms have actually existed before, but because due to COVID people couldn't leave their houses, they started to be more inclined to actually use those platforms. And so what happened is that before that point in my life, I always hated physical thrift stores. You know, I hated the smell, and I hated the fact that no matter how much you browsed, and no matter how much you seem to look, there is just so little that you seem to be able to find that was actually good for you, that actually was, you know, didn't have holes, rips, or was, you know, in decent quality, and that fit also, you know, your body and your style. But with online thrifting, suddenly you have an online catalog where everything is organized by size, color, brand, fabric, and it has become so much more user-friendly in terms of availability. And so that has pushed me to look for what was really good for me for the first time. Now, disclaimer, at that time, you know, 4 years ago during the start of COVID, I still lived in Europe. And I will admit right now, because now I live in the USA, I will admit that Europe has a better choice of thrifting, online thrifting, than the USA. I don't know why that is the case. Maybe it's the American mentality. I think people here are kind of disgusted with secondhand clothing, or, you know, even though some of them still have tags on. Many Americans, they just, I have found that they find it to be a kind of a non-classy thing to do, that they think it's shameful in a way. They don't really seem to be really that enthusiastic about it. And so, actually the same app, which is called Vinted, by the way, is not a paid promo, it's just something that I actually use. God, it would be nice if they pay me for this promotion when it's actually my experience. But I think this is the #1 thrift store app in the worldwide nowadays, Vinted. It's the #1 source for online thrifting. That really has taken that rise during the COVID era. And I actually have 2 accounts. One, I have it on Vinted USA, one, I have it on Vinted Europe, because Europe actually has many countries connected together, so you can live in one European country and then order from another, and there's just like a small shipping fee, and it's not even that expensive, and you can basically get thrift opportunities from like almost all of Europe, which is really amazing. because it's like a lot of ground to cover, and the app even has like a translating function, so that if someone speaks a language that you can't speak, then the conversation is translated, you can ask like questions. But having still lived in Europe at the time, it was very fortunate, very opportune for me that at that moment I could still have access to the whole European database of clothing. And the one thing that helps with thrifting is that you should learn the names of certain brands, certain vintage brands or brands that you know you like. And then there's like a whole search bar where you can bookmark those brands and you can filter it by size. And anytime something remotely in the realm of your interest that fits your body and your style enters the app, you will know it. Basically, there will be there's like a number count that shows you how many new items that fit your criteria have entered. Which, surprisingly enough, if you really refine it by your size, really your preferences, it is not that much. It is not as easy to find something good as you might think, and as a result, that really limits your options, but it limits them positively, where you end up only being shown and only getting things that are good for you, that are actually suitable for your taste and your body. I think there's even like a style search. You can just put, I don't know, let's say you're into boho, you can put boho in a search bar and you will only get boho clothing. This is what you're into. And as a result, I have made friends with several brands that I know regularly deliver clothing in the parameters that I know are appropriate for me. Now, I don't think these brands are going to be very useful to you because they are European, and if I really wanted something, I would just have some friends from Europe ship it to me to the USA. And by now, also, I don't really do it anymore because I've built up kind of like a basic but functional wardrobe, and I don't really think that I'm gonna do anything until I can really afford to make a bigger overhaul, which I don't know when that can happen. But this is a first source that allows you to look out for the main parameters with clothing. It also allows you to exclude certain brands, because some brands, even though technically they use the what I'm gonna talk about next, which is fabric, they have poor stitching, and so as a result, these clothes end up disintegrating when you wash them, or they end up ripping. They're not reliable. And so avoiding certain brands is just as important as knowing which ones you like. If you're European and you want to know, I will just put the brands that I like and use in the description, but there's no guarantee that you have the same style or that you will like them. I can just share it in case you want to benefit from this yourself. Now, the important thing that I want to touch on right now is the fabric. Fabric is an absolute basis of a quality wardrobe. You cannot have a good wardrobe and wear clothes that are made from, very sadly, what is most commonly sold to us nowadays, which is plastic. Anything that is called polyurethane, polyester, polyamide, although polyamide in small quantities actually is tolerable. These are all synthetic fibers, which is an equivalent to a recycled plastic bag. Like some brands, they even, they own up to it. At least they are, they're talking about it, and they say this piece of clothing was made from recycled polyester. They're giving it to you. Well, you can have different opinions about that. Personally, I don't want to wear recycled plastic on myself, especially when you have skin sensitivity like I do. It's just, it's just not what I want from life, and I don't think it can be healthy, quite frankly. Like, there are other ways to recycle polyester for other, objects that are useful in day-to-day life, and in those ways we can be environmentally friendly without really hurting our bodies, which we sadly do all the time. So this is the one thing that you should avoid, anything of that sort. And then the other cousin of all those poly fabrics is acrylic. Acrylic is basically what most commonly all sweaters are made of nowadays. Acrylic is also plastic. So there's a 99% chance that if you buy a common sweater from most common brands, it will at least have a mix of acrylic, which means there's not really a real sweater, it's just knit plastic. What are the cons of those fabrics? They irritate sensitive skin. They make you sweat like there's no tomorrow, and like not in this natural way that you would have after a good workout. They make you sweat in this like really horrible way that, just smells extra bad. Now, the only exception to this rule that I have with those poly fabrics is my workout clothes, because, sometimes you end up going to the gym and, or you end up playing sports. I occasionally play pickleball with my husband, who's like pretty good at it. And so when you work out a lot and when you have specifically like a gym session, then, this is excusable, or you also need like a gym bag to go with it, because you need to put your sweaty towel and you need to put your sweaty shoes somewhere. Well, he didn't give me a choice, so you're gonna have to bear with this right now. Calm down! See, this is also why I don't record that much. It's because this is what I'm dealing with. I prefer to record when I'm home alone, but when I'm home alone, he's not distracted by other family members, which is normally what happens, so I have to hold him like a mother holds a newborn, or he doesn't shut up, or he's just grunting and barking. It kind of blends in with my hair, so pretend he's not there. I will try to. Yes, you love me, I know. Oh my god. Just got a big wet kiss. Yes, he loves mommy, I know. I love you, but you distract me when I'm trying to focus on making a point. You really distract me, baby. Oh, I don't have a choice. At least he's freshly clean. I thought he would calm down because I walked them, but apparently his attachment to me is so strong he has to be annoying, or he just doesn't like being alone, which is probably a mix of both. And you know what was I talking about? Yes, I was going back to the fact that the exception for those gym equipment. But let's face it, like, how much gym equipment do you really need? Like, you have, what, 2, 3, 4 maximum pairs of leggings. That's enough. Maybe 6 to 10 t-shirts if you're very generous with yourself. And 2 sports bras, which is what I have. 1 black, 1 non-black. And 1 sports bag, and that's enough, you know. And this is, frankly, all that is acceptable in the realm. Especially, there's a lot of what tries to pass for sexy lingerie nowadays that is absolutely filled with those poly fabrics. And putting plastic on your private parts as a woman, not good. Like, if someone is prone to irritability there, it can even give you an infection, no matter how clean you are. It's just these things, they are irritating for the delicate human skin, especially in more delicate areas. So yeah, except for gym clothing, it is completely possible to avoid all polyplastic synthetic fibers. It is possible. I have right now not purchased one in over 3 years. I still have some old ones that I just can't bear to toss, because like I have like a sexy black dress, you know, that I actually got tailored to my body, which is another point I'm gonna be making shortly. But I just have a few items that I really am attached to, that I will just use them until they tear to the point that they will be unusable, because I don't want to waste something. That's my other point. That if you have something you really like and you wear, and you know it fits you, it's your size, your style, then you know just use it up till it's no longer viable. Just, you know, if you already put money into it, okay, it's bad, just, you know, deal with it till it expires, which is what I'm doing. But yeah, again, I haven't purchased anything new that's bad for over 3 years, except for the one time when I got conned, but that's not my fault, I just got conned. So, you know. Another tip for Vinted, make sure that you ask for a fabric tag before you purchase anything. Some people, they don't really mean bad, but they're oblivious. They're oblivious to the content that I'm making right now, which is why everyone should watch it and be aware. They don't know what they're doing, and so when you ask them, hi, is this for a real wool? They will say, yes, it's wool, because they don't know that acrylic is not wool. They just don't understand that, because the consumer consciousness is so low and weak that people who sell things, they don't know. And so you have to ask, hi, can you please send me a picture of the fabric tag, or look at the fabric tag and send it to me. So we have covered the importance of avoiding of toxic fabrics. Now we're going to talk about a bit of a gray area, which is viscose. Viscose is a kind of a middle fabric, which technically is still kind of synthetic, but it's more breathable. I have some things from it because I, again, bought them quite some time ago, just like polyester, and having a little bit of it, or having it as a lining, let's say that you have a leather coat and it has a viscose lining, that's tolerable. But I, at this point, avoid buying, for example, t-shirts, or this is made purely of viscose, and it's supposed to be like a breathable thing when it's warm, because, you know, I live in Las Vegas. But I would no longer buy anything at this point that is made 100% from viscose, as far as dresses and t-shirts go. Why? Because viscose tends to have these really irritating little tiny holes that happen over time from wear and tear, and they happen quite fast, you know, less than a year, and they are impossible to sew. They are micro holes, and it basically looks like a sweater eaten by moths. But what happens is that because viscose is not necessarily the most durable fabric, it just rips and disintegrates easily. And it's not like other more organic fabrics, which very often you can sew them and you can barely see the damage, or they just are so hard that they actually hurt your skin. Like, I don't know if you can see my fingers right now. Like, this is what happens to your fingers when you try to hand wash an organic fabric. The fabric is so sturdy, it hurts you. Like, I was hand washing a raw cotton tunic because it had some like really serious stains, and I had to, you know, like rub it before putting it in the washing machine because the stains wouldn't get off. And the fabric hurt me. This is what good sturdy fabric does. It literally makes you bleed if you hand wash it really hard because you have to. This is how tough a good fabric is. Viscose, very sadly, does not enter this category. So kind of do the same as with polyester. Don't really buy it anymore unless it's kind of like a blend thing. Like let's say that a clothing is 80% cotton or linen and 20% viscose, that passes. But 100% viscose, I no longer purchase items, which you will most commonly find in dresses and tops. I no longer do that. Unless you really, really love something and you think it's absolutely beautiful, but then count on the fact that you will have to replace it within a year because it will just not last that long. For example, this thing that I'm wearing, I think already has like a tiny hole somewhere on my butt because it's viscose. You sit down somewhere and it doesn't hold. It's just the unavoidable reality of the fabric. Now let's go towards what is actually good, what you actually should be looking for. So the first thing is wool, real wool, and that can be merino wool, alpaca, cashmere, sometimes camel wool also. And you would be surprised how cheap and easy you can actually find something made from these fabrics. However, be careful who the producer is because you can have a different great quality of wool, and many cheaper brands actually use cheaper, thinner version of these fabrics that disintegrate, and then the same thing happens to them as with viscose. For example, I used to have a sweater from Marks & Spencer, which is a fast fashion brand, and it was pretty, you know, it was real merino wool, but over time, because the wool was so thin and the sewing was not really technically correct, the stitching was not strong, it started to have these tiny holes over time, which were impossible to repair because of how the fabric was made. And I just knew if I kept wearing it, then it would just get more holes over time, so basically it was a lost cause. And that was the last time I ever got a new wool item from Marks & Spencer. If you want to know more about details of stitching, I recommend the YouTube channel called Justine Leconte. She's a French fashion designer. She's someone I've been following for years. She's very popular now. I used to follow her when she had like almost nobody. And you know, this is a channel about spirituality, and so I'm just using this part about how spirituality is applied in physical life to talk about my consumer choices. But she has like a whole channel that's exclusively about details of fashion. She like takes a designer handbag or like a good handbag and shows how you can recognize that something is faulty or poor quality or badly made and something is good. I recommend going to her for more details on this because she's an expert and she has been to some sort of design schools and whatnot, and I am not. I can just tell you from a layman's perspective, from a consumer's perspective, I can just tell you like the most beginner-friendly, you know, advice when it comes to the quality of the fabric. And just my personal experience as someone who is a highly sensitive person when it comes to what kind of fabrics I surround myself with, what works for me. So as a fellow spiritual person, there is a big chance you will also be sensitive highly as I am, and you'll relate to what I'm saying. So yeah, be careful where your wool or cashmere or alpaca is sourced from, because, you know, one merino wool does not equal the other. A good wool fabric is sturdy, it's gonna hold, and it's not gonna rip that easily. And frankly, the stitching is good. Even if it does, there is a possibility to sew it in a way that makes it almost invisible, because quality stitching does that. Wool is absolutely indispensable when it comes to living in any climate that's not Florida, you know, hot and humid. After I moved to Vegas, I was surprised because it was even colder here than I thought, and so I actually have been wearing wool clothing even here, you know, right now during winter months. You know how every woman has a weakness when it comes to one item of clothing, like, you know, Carrie Bradshaw has too many shoes. Well, I have a scarf fetish, and so, you know, it doesn't help that I have actually a designer friend who makes wool scarves, and she gifted some of them to me as a compensation for me participating in a photo shoot that where I was like promoting her clothing, if you're watching this hype. So yeah, she kind of, you know, encouraged my scarf fetish so much by gifting me all those, you know, free wool scarves. Some I bought, some I was gifted. And you know, if you live in any climate, like anything like New York, like East Coast, you know, it's absolutely indispensable to get you through spring, autumn, and winter, which is like, you know, at least over half of the year. Wool is the number one thing to keep you warmer. And I know you might think that it's scratchy, but if you look for cashmere, which again does not have to be as expensive as you think if it's in a thrift store, I have found wonderful cashmere opportunities for really low prices. Like, you really can find something even like for 20 bucks, and let's face it, right now even a basic polyester item can cost 20 bucks with the clothes of with the cost of clothes rising. So paying 20 bucks for a real cashmere in a vintage thrift store is really not that much of a high price. Be careful where you source your wool, but nevertheless, it's a good fabric to have in your closet. The other good and surprisingly sturdy fabric is silk. And I know that you might associate silk with luxury, but honestly, it is not as hard to find some silk as you think. And I actually even have a knit silk sweater. I think it's mixed with cotton or something. But silk is a very good alternative when you need some sort of lighter coverage. So let's say it's springtime and it's getting closer towards summer, or it's summertime and the evenings get cooler. You need something lighter to cover you during warmer months. Silk is perfect for that. That's why silk is very commonly sold in Asian countries. Why? Because Asia has, first of all, they source silk. Second of all, it's a very hot and humid climate. So wearing silk clothing over there works because you can cover yourself from the sun while it's a breathable fabric. Unlike wool, which would make you sweaty in weather that's too hot, silk is very good for that. This is why also silk is popular for sleepwear, because we tend to sweat in our sleep, and silk, again, being breathable, helps us deal with that. Again, you might think that it's only reserved for the rich, but you can find fantastic deals on second-hand clothing apps, especially silk dresses that are again sourced from Asian countries. Just make sure that when you buy silk that is real silk, not artificial silk. Sometimes it's called rayon. I know some people who actually don't mind rayon. Rayon is kind of trying to simulate the feeling of silk while being a more available and cheaper material, but quite frankly, rayon kind of gives me the same effects as polyester. I used to have a rayon dress once from India, and it was just so uncomfortable. It was not breathable. So I would go for real silk every time. Just make sure that you read the tag well, and make sure that, again, kind of like with wool, make sure it's from the right supplier. I had a silk top from Bon Prix once, and it fell apart at the stitching. It was horrible. It's just not good quality, and the silk was kind of also unpleasant to the touch. It was rough. It just did not feel as comfortable as it should, and it started to fall apart like on the side because, again, the stitching was cheap. Not worth it. The other fabric that works is cotton. Now, the issue with cotton is that it's very often not ethically sourced, and there are very little ways to check that, except for looking at the supplier. Like, for example, if you're buying cotton from H&M, you can probably bet that's poor quality cotton. But cotton is a simple, breathable fabric that works. There's not really much to say there. You know, it's one of the cheapest, most common things that you can find for daily usage. So definitely recommended. Just again, make sure that you buy it from a better brand. And then we have my absolute favorite, which is linen. Linen is probably the cheapest, easiest fabric to source organically and locally, because there are really big linen factories in Eastern Europe. Linen is very commonly sourced in Eastern Europe, and prices in Eastern Europe are still low. And they are low for ethical work and ethical wages, often made by independent craftsmen. And so it is absolutely possible for you to build a basic quality wardrobe by buying things from locally sourced linen in Eastern Europe. Linen is also very sturdy. Linen is the one that's the most likely to give you this, as in bleeding fingers when you try to rub the fabric. It is really hard to make a hole in linen unless you like tear it with, a sharp pointing object, which, nothing's gonna survive that. It's sturdy, it's easy to clean, and it has several grades of weight, so you can have lightweight linen for summer and heavyweight linen for winter. It has fantastic practicality and functionality, and it is very body friendly. I also find it to be extremely climatic. It just gives you that cozy cottagecore vibe. If somebody likes that, then you will appreciate it too. But honestly, because of its price and because it doesn't have the same controversies as cotton, linen is one of my favorite fabrics to use because of its sturdiness. And linen actually brings us to my next point and my second source of purchases after thrifting, which is Etsy. Now, Etsy can be really brutally expensive depending on where and what you buy, but also it can be very affordable, again, depending on where you buy. If the seller comes from Eastern Europe, there is a chance that you're going to get a better price on their items. You just have to do your search. And they also sometimes have very big clearance sections on Etsy, which makes it so that you can get really affordable things that someone just happened to have returned, and the deals on those are honestly fantastic, and sometimes those prices rival the fast fashion brands, so you basically pay the same price for better quality. And that brings me to my next point, which is whatever you get, doesn't matter if you thrifted or you get it on Etsy. Some people have a problem when they say, oh, well, I didn't try it on in the store, so how do I know if it's gonna fit me? Well, 90% of things in the store aren't gonna fit you either, because they are made by teenagers working in sweatshops and wanting to end their lives, and they don't exactly make it to measure your particular body. So, you can get in a store and go into a changing room where you're going to be bombarded by, subliminals that are gonna make you want to buy whatever crappy piece of clothing you're trying on right now. But the truth is that none of this really holds a candle to the one good thing that you can do for yourself, and that is go to a tailor shop and make sure that your closet is made to your body specifically. And so in most cases, no matter if you buy something thrifted or on Etsy, or even in a regular store if you want to defend that, nothing that is made there will actually perfectly fit your body. Historically, our ancestors used to have what would be called a seasonal wardrobe. They would buy a whole bunch of them, and then they would know how to sew, so they would fix it themselves, or they would have a friend or a mother or someone who would make sure that it fits their body. Tailored clothing used to be a thing throughout almost all of history. It is only with the arrival of fast fashion that we have started to accept clothes that don't fit anyone, clothes that are not worth anything, and clothes that are fundamentally mismatched. Luckily, tailor shops still exist, and they're not really as expensive as you might think, because they're mostly manned by, here in America, Asian workers, which ask for a lower wage, or in Europe that's, even cheaper. And so it's really an underrated but such a wonderful way of improving everything that you own. The clothes that you wear should fit. And throughout all of humanity's history, everyone knew that. We have somehow forgotten just in the last 50 or so years. And people who are actually taking care of what they're wearing are the ones that tailor what they own perfectly to their bodies. Because everyone's body is unique and has certain quirks, and everyone can be made to look beautiful if what they are wearing actually fits them. And for that to be done, you need a professional to measure things precisely to your body. And that brings me to my last point, which is understanding that fast fashion has done something horrible to us and has made us treat what we wear as something disposable, which is something that has contributed very negatively to the state of the planet. But your wardrobe is an investment. It's a piece of your identity. Your items are an investment. What you wear should accompany you for as long as the wear and tear makes it last. You should have a set wardrobe of a certain amount of items that you like, so you don't end up wearing the same thing every day, although some people actually like that. So yeah, of course you should have some variety going on for yourself, but at the end of the day, it's a piece of your identity. It's an investment into something durable. It is not something that you are meant to throw away after a month or so of usage. And as a result, it is not something also that you are meant to purchase every week. I have taken years to collect pieces that I really like from those thrift stores. Like I said, those 4 years since I started my journey. And there are some pieces that I've had since then that I still have. They're in perfect condition. I don't want to get rid of them. I want to use them for the rest of my life. And this is the attitude that you really should have with anything that you own. It's something that you should be bonding with, because it becomes a part of you. Something that hugs your physical body, your physical self. It becomes a support system for you. And if you end up treating it as something disposable, that means you don't really respect, value, or appreciate anything that you own. But from a spiritual standpoint, it also means that you don't really care about the quality of this earthly existence that you are in, because you don't care to really have that unique relationship where every physical experience is meaningful and unique to you, which should really be reflected in every aspect of your life. And what you own is one of them. And that brings me to my next piece of advice, is that don't buy if you don't have to, and buy more rarely, but for a higher price. I would take buying something on Etsy that may be a bit more expensive, but doing it once a year and saving up money for it every time, over buying something every week that I'm gonna have to end up trashing after a month. If you stop all your fast fashion purchases and you save up all that money that you would have normally spent in any fast fashion store, you will be able to afford more than you think. And you'll actually start loving your life and living yourself, being surrounded by things of your choice. And you'll actually start feeling more like a high-value being. Your physical environment is something that should reflect the expression of your soul. This earth is a playground. And when you make a game character in an RPG game, you try to make the character look like something you want to be, or like yourself, or at least the projection of something you want to project outwardly, right? And if this is what you do in a game, why wouldn't you do it in the physical world, right? Treat this life in a way as a plane of simulation where you want the simulation to be the best expression of your soul spark in this earthly playground to the highest extent that you can do. And take your time, you know, I'm not done with my journey either. I still experiment with so many things regarding myself, but I know that every day I am closer to perfecting the care for having my physical environment be exactly the projection of the internal radiance that I want to experience in my daily life. And you can do it too. Everyone has a unique style, everyone has a unique perspective, everyone has a unique identity that can be reflected through their physical choices. And so using these steps that I've given you, treat this as part of your spiritual journey, to swear to yourself to only own things that really reflect who you are. They reflect your personal style and really reflect the fact that you want to surround yourself with comfort and quality instead of mediocrity and lack of awareness. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments, and I'll make more videos to answer those questions for you. Bye-bye.